Hi, my name is Prachi, and for my project, I'm gonna talk about the movie Little Miss Sunshine. So, just a trigger warning, there's gonna be some mention of depression, suicide, self harm, and there might be some possible spoilers ahead. So, a little bit background about the movie. It's a 2006 dark comedy for adults, touching the subjects of depression, suicide, what it means to win or to lose, this idea of the American dream that if you work hard, um, you can and you should achieve success. Also, identity crisis. Almost every character in the movie is going through an identity crisis, and then also touches on the subject of beauty standards. So it's a story about this dysfunctional Hoover family who lives in New Mexico. They live in New Mexico in the United States. The members of the family include Richard, the father and the patriarch of the family. He despises losers. He has this "you should always win" type of attitude, um, and which is almost ironic because he, in his personal or professional life, he's struggling to be a motivational speaker. He's very high strung and obsessed with winning. Cheryl is an overworked mother of two. She's a rock of the family, has a very optimistic attitude, reassures everyone constantly, and keeps the family from falling apart. Cheryl has a brother, Frank, who is introduced in the beginning at a psychiatric facility. He's a eminent Proust scholar, but he's always depressed. He is shown to be very clever. Dwayne is an antisocial teenager. He hates everyone. He values Nietzschean beliefs, and taken a vow of silence to achieve his dream of joining the Air Force. Then there's Grandpa Edwin, who is a heroin addict. He's pretty foul mouthed, but he has a huge influence on Olive, who is the star of the movie, and he encourages her to take part in this beauty contest. And he tells her that it's not about winning, it's um, the biggest losers are the people um, who who quit, who don't even try, basically. So the story follows their journey to California to get Olive to take part in this beauty pageant. So Uncle Frank, um, he is, I think, one of the most interesting, my favorite characters in the movie. He considers himself as the most prominent Proust scholar in the world. Um, he loses the love of his life, who is also one of his graduate students, to his competitor and rival, the second most renowned Proust scholar in the world, to whom he has also lost a MacArthur Fellowship. So there's a lot going on in his life. He has a series of misfortunes that make him question his place in this world and his identity, and he's constantly battling this depression throughout the movie, due to which he also attempts suicide, possibly by slicing his wrist, because we see bandages on his wrists throughout the entire movie. Um, he suffers from major depressive disorder. He is um, he battles through this sad loneliness, thoughts about loneliness and depression. throughout this movie seems always unhappy, says that he can never find happiness and love in his life anymore. And on top of that, his brother-in-law Richard, who's obsessed with the idea of winning and success, constantly talks down on to him, um, and talks about how winners don't quit, to his kids in the presence of Frank, alluding to the fact that Frank is somehow a loser, since he tried to kill himself. Um, so Frank displays, like signs of major depressive disorder, and DSM-5 um, has this list of symptoms of major depressive disorder, and it says that if you have more than 5 of these symptoms that last for uh, at least 2 weeks, then you have depressive disorder. And Frank's exhibits almost all of the signs on the list. He has lack of enthusiasm, lack of energy and fatigue, um, has thoughts about self harm, also some guilt because he recently moved in with the Hoover family, um, and started sharing room with Dwayne, and he feels guilty about being a burden on his sister's family. And the second disorder or second symptoms, is possible anxiety symptoms. He seemed anxious when he ran into the love of his life, um, and at a gas station, with his rival. So he like tries to have a conversation, but he just seemed like he didn't want to talk. He was anxious. His body language was kind of like nervous. He tried to hide his wrists. Also hides away um, when he saw his rival in the car filling up fuel um, in his car. So yeah, so that's my second diagnosis of his symptoms. For treatment, he has several treatment options available. Since his is a more severe case, it would require a combination treatment of, first, antidepressants, so some form of selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. These are the most common type of antidepressants that are prescribed, like Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, and they do take a while to work, so you kind of have to be patient until they take full effect. I would also recommend some sort of counseling, um, like cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, so I would tell him, as his therapist, that failure in life is an opportunity to learn. Um, it's a it's an opportunity to become better. Um, Loneliness helps us understand ourselves better, spend some more time with ourselves, and try to find your identity. And it's also an opportunity to learn about yourself. Um, and I would recommend that, all of the love doesn't need to come from just one person. He is surrounded by people who love him. So it's just like, uh, just requires a need to he just needs to reframe his negative thoughts, um, and I think that will help him a little bit. So a combination of these treatments, I think, and no need to get discouraged if these options don't seem to work at first. It does require patience and some work. So in conclusion, I think the movie's portrayal of the disorders are accurate. I think when depression happens, it's very soul numbing, hopeless, especially when you have severe depression. Um, and sometimes you can have pretty severe reaction. So I've never experienced that, but I can relate and empathize with him. And especially since he didn't have a good support system except his sister, who is, battling her own demons. So I think it's good to ask for help early on when you have just started to experience negative thoughts. Um, so yeah, so I think film, yeah, mocks and questions society's emphasis on winners and losers, and it doesn't have a happily ever after conclusion, but I think it ends on a good note and gives you some insight and inspiration. And yeah, thank you. These are the references I used.